6. Employment, income, money, and education. To achieve the long-term overarching ambition and the high-level outcomes for employment, income and education described in Section 4, this section sets out the outcomes we expect to see over a 10-year period as a result of the actions we must all take to ensure disabled people have access to a good standard of living through fair income and employment. Education, income and employment is made up of the following themes: employment and income, and education for children and young people. Employment, income, money, and education. Outcome 1. Employment and business support. Disabled people can access timely and coordinated advice and devolved services that are knowledgeable and accessible to enable them to achieve equitable access to paid and unpaid volunteering, work experience, self-employment and long-term job opportunities, careers. Outcome 2. Inclusive policy and practice. Disabled people have access to inclusive recruitment, retention and progression practices. This includes leveraging the public purse to foster behaviours that support an inclusive workforce, removing barriers and creating a supportive environment where disabled people can thrive in their careers. Outcome 3. Accessible employers. Disabled people are represented at all levels in the Welsh workforce. Employers are aware of their legal responsibilities and the employment rights of disabled workers. Employers are encouraged to adopt inclusive practices to eliminate prejudice and discrimination in the workplace and promote the equitable recruitment, retention and progression of disabled workers, understanding that different treatment through the provision of reasonable adjustments is often the means of achieving equity in employment outcomes. Outcome 4. Skill development. Disabled job seekers and workers of all ages understand their employment rights and have the means to exercise them, including through positive action to ensure equitable opportunities for lifelong learning. Disabled people are not disadvantaged in the job market by barriers to education, training or recruitment support. Disabled people have access to personalised, impartial professional careers and employability information, advice, support and guidance. Outcome 5. Addressing barriers to income. Disabled people's views are taken into account when engaging with UK Government on reforms to the non-devolved benefit system. Outcome 6. Reduced socio-economic inequality. Socio-economic outcomes for disabled people are improved and inequalities reduced through positive action and delivering on the socio-economic duty across the public sector in Wales. Outcome 7. Education for adults and lifelong learning. Working with MEDRA and sector partners, the benefits of learning throughout life are promoted and targets set to increase participation, particularly among those underrepresented in tertiary education who may face social, economic, cultural or organisational barriers to learning. The outcomes above align to Article 27 of the UN CRDP, which sets out disabled people's equal right to gain a living in an open, inclusive and accessible labour market. Countries must take steps to prohibit discrimination in all employment matters and ensure just and favourable working conditions, including protection from harassment and the right to redress grievances. Measures should be taken to promote employment opportunities, career advancement and self-employment for disabled people, as well as to provide reasonable accommodation in the workplace. The outcomes above align to Article 24 of the UN CRDP, which sets out disabled people's right to access general tertiary education, vocational training, adult education and lifelong learning without discrimination and on an equal basis with others. Many disabled people who want work cannot access it. Barriers include a lack of accessible workplaces and support when in work, which prevents them from earning a fair wage and achieving job fulfilment. Despite legal requirements set out in the Equality Act, many employers still fail to understand the necessary accommodations required to support disabled people into employment. Unquiet Media's Intro to Neurodiversity in the Creative Industries training, funded by Welsh Government via Creative Wales, is one of the programmes we are supporting, which are seeking to address this. Training for employers on making reasonable adjustments for neurodivergent workers is also available from the Welsh Government's Disabled People's Employment Champions. For the year ending June 2025, the employment rate among disabled people aged 16 to 64 in Wales was 52%, whilst the rate for people who are not disabled was 81% in Wales. Disabled workers often also find themselves in lower paying positions. The Wellbeing of Wales Report 2025 indicates the pay disparity between disabled and non-disabled people in Wales was £1.18, 8% in 2024. National Milestones sets the long-term target to eliminate the pay gap for gender, disability and ethnicity by 2050. Amongst working-age adults, 27% of individuals who live in a family where a disabled person lives are in relative income poverty, compared with 18% of those in families where no one identifies as disabled relative income poverty. In 2024-25, 1 in 7 disabled people or people with a limiting long-standing illness, 14%, lived in a household in material deprivation, compared with 10% of people who were not disabled. National Survey for Wales. In previous survey years, around 1 in 4 or 5 disabled people or people with a limiting long-standing illness lived in a household in material deprivation. The National Survey for Wales sample in 2024-25 included fewer people from low-income areas. This may have impacted on the estimates for material deprivation. These numbers highlight a concerning disparity that is simply unacceptable in a fair and just society. Ensuring disabled people have access to an equitable standard of living through fair income and work is essential to advancing an inclusive society where everyone can contribute meaningfully. Evidence suggests encouraging applications for employment from disabled people is good for businesses, giving organisations a competitive edge. It can help increase the number of high-quality candidates and create a workforce that reflects its local community. The Disability Confidence Scheme is a UK-wide initiative set up to support employers to make the most of the talent disabled people can bring to the workplace. However, low numbers of public sector organisations attain the highest Level 3 leader status and trust in the scheme by disabled people. We are committed to working with the UK Government as it undertakes its review of the Disability Confidence Scheme to address these issues. We also want to increase the number of employers in Wales achieving leader status. To achieve this, we are establishing a Disability Confident Leaders Forum for Wales. This will bring key stakeholders together with employers who have achieved Disability Confident Level 3 leader status to share and spread good practice and use peer learning to encourage other organisations in Wales to join the scheme and progress to leader status. We also call on our public sector partners to lead by example and commit to becoming disability confident leaders where this is not already the case. Our Disabled People's Employment Champions are actively supporting employers across the private and public sectors to achieve this goal. This is complemented by the work of Business Wales Disabled People's Employment Advisors, who support small and medium business enterprises to improve employment practices and through digital resources available through Business Wales. We are also working to improve our relationship with DWP Disability Advisors to enable us to work together more strategically in our efforts to increase the number of organisations progressing to disability confident leader status. In addition, we have worked with members of the Disability Rights Task Force to co-produce evidence that will test the feasibility of a Welsh-specific scheme. The Welsh Government has published co-produced research exploring the Disability Confidence Scheme, led by Disability People in Wales. Findings from this research represent stakeholder perspectives. Business Wales is the Welsh Government's leading bilingual business support service for Welsh micro-businesses and small and medium enterprises, including social enterprises and aspiring entrepreneurs of all ages. The Welsh Government employs 5 Disabled People's Employment Champions, DPECs, who bring lived experience and expertise to their roles as permanent members of staff. The DPECs support delivery of the Welsh Government's ambition to improve employment outcomes for disabled people working both internally and externally. The Welsh Government is committed to promoting the inclusion and rights of disabled people by encouraging organisations and businesses across Wales to appoint dedicated champions to improve disabled people's access to work. Hybrid or flexible working options are particularly important for many disabled people. Hybrid working arrangements can benefit employers and disabled workers. Appropriate arrangements need to be available at the point of employment to ensure disabled people are supported to undertake their roles and responsibilities, and that employers work within the legal frameworks. Support for post-school higher education, skills development and apprenticeships is needed for both young disabled people and those in later life seeking to reskill, supporting empowerment, independence and equality. By supporting inclusive policies and practices, Wales can set a benchmark in creating a society where everyone has the chance to fulfil their potential and contribute in a meaningful way. Disabled people are often viewed as passive recipients of services such as care and support. In reality, disabled people are economic leaders, entrepreneurs and employers. Inclusive economics, where disabled people bring lived experience and expertise, supports the economy to achieve a more prosperous Wales. Medra funds the Employability eHub, an online resource developed to help students from groups statistically less likely to attend university find their career path. It can help disabled learners build skills and career confidence when seeking employment. Student Space, jointly funded by Medra, provides expert information, support services and a wide range of bilingual online resources created with students to help with the challenges of university life. This includes resources and advice for disabled students. Education for children and young people. Outcome 1. Access to education. Disabled children and young people's educational and health needs are identified, responded to and considered in the development of education and health policy. Outcome 2. Inclusive education policy. Disabled learners and staff are meaningfully engaged in the development of education policy through a rights-based approach, having a voice in the planning and provision of support that they receive across all education institutions, including where education is received at home. Outcome 3. Supportive providers of education. Education providers have the resource and understanding necessary to fully incorporate the social model of disability and embed the rights of disabled learners, both as children and young people and as disabled people, including through the recruitment of disabled teaching staff and the provision of specialist training and equipment. Outcome 4. Inspection and regulation and compliance. Inclusive and accessible education is delivered for all disabled learners, with robust mechanisms of regulation, inspection and enforcement, supported by an effective programme of monitoring and evaluation that reflects the experiences of disabled learners and identifies and promotes examples of good practice. Outcome 5. Accessible educational settings. Educational settings and other academic institutions are accessible both in their design and in their supporting physical infrastructure, enabling disabled people to learn among their peers and within their local communities. Outcome 6. Access to further and higher education. Disabled learners experience a smooth transition to further or higher education through effective transition planning, inclusive practices, and supportive learning environments. The outcomes above align to Articles 7 and 24 of the UNCRDP. Article 7 sets out countries' requirement to take all necessary measures to ensure disabled children enjoy fully their human rights and fundamental freedoms equally with other children. Article 24 recognises disabled people's rights to education, mandating an inclusive system at all levels. Countries must ensure disabled people are included in general education, provide reasonable accommodations, and support effective learning. This includes teaching Braille and British Sign Language to people, employing qualified teachers, and ensuring access to higher education and lifelong learning without discrimination. Inclusion in mainstream settings promotes a sense of belonging and community, essential for the social and emotional well-being of every child and young person. Education of disabled children, and in particular children who are blind, deaf or deafblind, is delivered in the most appropriate languages and modes and means of communication for the individual, and in environments which maximise academic and social development. Inclusion and access for disabled children during their early years and throughout their school life are essential for them to achieve their potential. Early inclusion and participation ensures children develop a strong sense of belonging and self-worth, which is foundational for their overall development. However, their experiences vary depending on the availability of the right support and access to inclusive early childcare and play, learning and care experiences and opportunities. Access to the right types of resources and support for disabled children to engage in play and educational activities is essential to children's development. As they progress through school, continued inclusion and access to tailored educational opportunities help them build essential skills, confidence and independence. This supportive environment not only enhances their academic achievements, but also prepares children and young people for a successful and fulfilling future, empowering them to contribute meaningfully to society. Disabled children and young people often face extra challenges they must overcome if they wish to take part fully in society and live life on their own terms. Improving accessibility and support is crucial to ensuring disabled children and young people have the best beginning. Some children and young people may need more help in school to achieve their full potential. It is important to recognise that not all disabled children and young people have additional learning needs, ALN. The support required may be for better access to a premises or quiet areas at school, for example. Some parents and carers report that some children with ALN continue to experience barriers to accessing education. In 2024-25, 32% of GCSE entries by pupils in Year 11 with an additional learning need were awarded a grade at A* to C, down from 34% in 2023-24. Examination results gov.wales. As of the 2024-25 academic year, there were 3,014 pupils in Wales receiving some type of education other than at school, EOTAS. In 2024-25, there were, proportionately, significantly more pupils with ALN mainly educated outside school than in the general student population. The Welsh Government remains dedicated to ensuring all children are able to exercise their right to education regardless of their differences, receive a high-quality inclusive education and the opportunity to succeed. The Curriculum and Assessment Wales Act 2021, the Act, sets out the duty to promote knowledge and understanding of both UN conventions on the rights of children and the rights of disabled people. Schools and other settings must promote knowledge and understanding of the two conventions amongst those who provide learning and teaching in respect of their school or setting's curriculum. Welsh Government's Hub provides a range of digital content and tools to education settings in Wales to support the transformation of digital teaching and learning practices, including guidance on the two conventions. We are committed to ensuring training programmes are provided to improve outcomes for disabled children and young people. Welsh-speaking children with ALN may face additional barriers when accessing education. The Additional Learning Needs and Education Tribunal Wales Act 2018 places a duty on local authorities to improve Welsh language provision for learners with additional learning needs and for workforce planning with the additional learning needs sector. This is monitored through local authorities' Welsh in Education strategic plans. The Welsh Government has produced guides to support teachers when planning and delivering support to learners with hearing and/or vision impairment, autism and ADHD. These build on the rapid evidence assessments, which look at the effectiveness of educational interventions to support these learners. Events including taster days with quiet hours, virtual tours, summer schools, keeping in touch (KIT) days, and bespoke career fairs can support a smoother transition for learners into further and higher education. Students can approach their student services team for advice when support is needed. This could include discussions on financial assistance or reasonable adjustments. Student Finance Wales also provides information on support available for disabled students. The ALN Pathfinder is designed to help young people with additional learning needs, ALN, to make a successful transition from school to further education. Together in partnership with colleges across Wales, the resource supports ALN learners and their families to make informed choices as they plan their next steps. The website has been developed using Welsh Government ALN Transformation Grant funding and supported by Colegau Cymru. The Reaching Wider programme, funded by MEDRA, is a collaboration of colleges, universities and other education partners. It delivers widening access activity to encourage school and college learners to consider their future and education aspirations, as well as academic skills, building and mentoring. It helps underrepresented groups, including disabled learners. It raises educational aspirations and skills, and creates innovative study opportunities and learning pathways to higher education. All colleges and universities have strategic equality plans in place and work collaboratively to achieve commitments, including promoting equity of access and equality of opportunity. MEDRA reviews their plans, which set out how they will meet duties under the Equality Act 2010. MEDRA produces regulatory and funding conditions, including conditions on equality of opportunity and staff and student welfare, which sets expectations on colleges and universities, including on supporting disabled students. Children and young people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, typically find it difficult to focus and pay attention in educational settings. This can result in poor academic performance and attendance, a need for special education provision, in some cases exclusion from school, and making it less likely for them to go on to further education. The Welsh Government is committed to supporting learners with ADHD and has published guidance based on an assessment of research studies, which have considered the effectiveness of approaches to support children and young people with ADHD. The aim of the guide is to support practitioners when planning and delivering timely and effective support for children and young people with ADHD. The Welsh Government wants to ensure that all disabled children have the best possible start in life. Inclusive early years provision lays strong foundations for a child's development. Early years childcare should be fully accessible to disabled children. We are committed to reviewing how the Childcare and Early Years Capital Programme supports the accessibility of the physical environment for inclusive registered childcare and play services. 1 or 2 babies in every 1,000 are born with a hearing impairment that may affect their speech and language development. Newborn hearing screening helps to find those babies and offer help and support from the start. For a child who is identified as deaf or having hearing impairment at any age. Language and communication needs are considered at the earliest stage in Wales by audiologists. If a communication need is identified, then a referral is made to qualified teachers of the deaf and/or speech and language therapists. Options may include spoken language, British Sign Language, sign-supported English, Makaton, or a combination of spoken and signs, including bilingualism, depending on what is considered best for the child, following assessment and collaboration between families and professionals. Outcomes of referrals are monitored within the Audiology Individual Patient Management Plan. The Welsh Government is also committed to developing accessible, high-quality, responsive and citizen-centred services which meet the needs of all deaf-blind people in Wales. Language acquisition for all babies is vital. Both parents and deaf babies or children should be provided with the opportunity to learn BSL and access deaf BSL signing role models. Early assessment support and access to language for deaf babies and children are essential to their cognitive and linguistic development. Strong, effective communication through BSL supports healthy and positive relationships between parents, carers and their children. We will continue to work to improve early assessment and support for deaf babies and children. The Welsh Government remains committed to supporting British Sign Language, BSL, and to furthering the use, knowledge and expertise of the language in Wales. It is our intention to design and develop policy which delivers the greatest positive impact for the BSL signing community of Wales, making provision to promote and facilitate the use of BSL and its tactile forms, and removing existing language barriers. BSL has been integrated into the New Skills for Life qualification, which will be available in all schools from September 2027. This change allows for a comprehensive approach, addressing the need for qualified teachers and embracing regional dialect differences in BSL.